Welcome back to the Accountability Hour, the podcast where we tackle double standards, self-improvement, and the messy realities of relationships. This is Lynn Watchhorn. How do you know when it's time to walk away from your current relationship? This can be a really hard one to decide, but sometimes when you're thinking about it constantly, that's a sign. Why do people stay in bad relationships? They hope it's going to get better. They're afraid of being alone and starting over because ultimately, if you're in a serious relationship where you live with someone or you have a lot of things mixed in together, it's going to take a while to unravel that, and the consequences may be ugly. So, also sunk cost. You've already been with them a long time. You don't want to, end it now. And a lot of us will get stuck in the loop where we're in a relationship that's okay sometimes. It gets really bad for a while, but then it gets a little bit better. So we stay and we're like, okay, everything's good now. But then it goes back to being bad. And then it happens again and again. And we cling to the potential of the person. Oh, they could change. Things could get better. But the reality is we need to be looking at the patterns and not the promises they're making. And in a lot of cases, you still love this person. You genuinely want the best for them. You don't want to see them suffer or go through anything. You don't want to put them through the breakup and break their heart and then have to untangle everything. So you have this deep guilt knowing that you want to end it, but you don't want to screw them over. And ultimately, you can love someone and still realize they're not right for you. Also, a lot of us, if we are like the fixer type of people, caretakers, or even people pleasers, we don't want to be the villain. And there really isn't a super nice way of breaking up with someone. So sometimes we'll sit in the background hoping they'll break up with us first so we don't have to be the one to initiate it. But then that just wastes not only their time, but our time. And it creates a bad situation for everyone. Also, this is where our brain gets us. We like to stay with what is familiar because it feels safe. Even if it's toxic, it's still familiar to you. That's why some of us, if we had a really rough upbringing that was toxic and we're aware it was toxic, we often end up in relationships with people that play out the same type of things that our parents used to do. Some of the things that we probably hated and we really hoped we would get away from it, but then we catch ourselves back in the same exact pattern. But if you don't notice this and take action on it, we often get sucked in this type of thing. And I mean, this plays out in every aspect of our lives, not just relationships. We all know that person that is in the same job like for 10, 15, 20 years. And they hate it. They hate it so much. But they don't want to have to update their resume and apply for jobs or go through all the effort to try to find something better. So they just stick around because it's just the path of least resistance. And we're all guilty of this type of thing here and there, so don't beat yourself up over it. But when you create that awareness, it makes you more willing and open-minded to taking action on it. So what are some signs that you're in the wrong relationship potentially? You feel so much relief when they're not around. You feel comfortable to be yourself. And it can be as simple as you hanging out watching TV, eating chips, or something simple. You don't feel like you're on eggshells or you're afraid she's going to walk in and get mad at you for what you're watching or what you're eating or whatever it is. This is sometimes our nervous system telling us that, hey, there's something wrong here. And maybe you guys get along really well, but your values don't match. I know of a lot of couples like this. One of them wants kids, the other one doesn't. And neither one is willing to change their mind, but they're still together, and it's like, you guys are wasting your time. And of course, you don't want the grocery list where you start ruling out pretty much everybody because you want someone so specific. We're seeing this become more and more common. So you got to be realistic on like, okay, how many people probably have all these traits that I'm looking for? Because yes, your values need to match. Okay, and then what about your personality traits that you're looking for? What about appearance-based standards you have? All of these things added up could potentially rule out just about everybody. So do consider that, but still, your core values need to match. Next, you've had that same conversation more than 3 times. And I'm a firm believer, there's a lot of miscommunication in relationships. People fail to understand each other. Sometimes I've seen couples arguing with each other, and they're literally on the same side. And I'm sitting there just baffled because it's like, you guys realize you have the same opinion, right? And they're just going back and forth arguing. But sometimes it's not that. You've communicated 500 times, you guys have had the same argument. You are genuinely opposite of each other on this. Maybe your boundaries are being violated and you really need her to stop what she's doing. At this point, having the conversation again is not going to work. And a lot of us are guilty of this because having a conversation is the easiest way to go, but sometimes it's not working. You got to start taking action at that point. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's a breakup per se, but some people don't act without consequences. So maybe that's you spending less time with her or finding a way around whatever you guys are arguing about. And this is not about punishing her, this is about your self-respect and taking care of yourself as well. This is an extreme example, but there was this guy I talked to once that he was letting his girlfriend borrow his car often. And she was like getting it scratched up, dents, like she was getting in small accidents constantly. And he was stuck with the bill because she couldn't afford to pay to fix the car. And it's like, dude, at what point do you stop letting her use the car? Because there's no consequences for her realistically because she wasn't having to pay for it or anything. He was also taking care of the insurance bill. So at that point, she needs consequences. Otherwise, she's not going to stop what she's doing. Next, your self-worth shrinks when you're around them. Being with them makes you question your value as a human being. You feel less than. And then around everybody else, you feel good about yourself. And if you're around this type of environment long enough, you will genuinely believe you don't deserve anything or you're not worth anything. And I know a lot of people who have been through relationships like that where they're to that point and it's so sad and it takes so long for them to build themselves back up. People who love you should make you feel more like yourself, not less. And you should feel safe and comfortable in their presence. Next, you're exhausted just trying to explain yourself. You shouldn't have to constantly justify your feelings or this or that. It's one thing if she's genuinely asking questions to get a deeper understanding of what's going on in your mind. But some ladies will use this as a manipulation tactic. They'll make you explain yourself and then they'll twist and bend your words on purpose to make you feel like you're overreacting or what you're asking for is unreasonable. Next, you've become a version of yourself that you don't like. This usually happens over time. It's natural to pick up your partner's habits or certain personality traits. But sometimes we look in the mirror down the road and we're like, ugh, I don't like this. This is not who I am. This doesn't reflect my values. And that's a huge red flag. That shows that you're in the wrong environment. Next, you stay for potential, not reality. A lot of us get sucked into this because, things are going to get better. Maybe some stuff's coming up and everything will be resolved. Maybe she has an issue that's about to get fixed. She's just stressed because of money, and once she gets money, she'll be good kind of thing. But sometimes there's people who, no matter what they have, they're not happy. They could win the lottery tomorrow, and she's still gonna be upset about something. And I'm not talking like the short-term type of things, a family member just passed away or something, and she's going through a rough patch. I'm talking long-term, like, behaviors and patterns. Next, you feel more lonely with them than when you're alone. Because they don't see you. She's not trying to understand your inner world or what you want. You're just sort of invisible in the relationship. You just sort of exist. Or in some cases, you may just be the wallet. Next, they dismiss or ridicule your boundaries. Especially when you're constantly trying to respect their boundaries, but they're not doing the same for you. That's not okay. Maybe she laughs, mocks, or guilt trips you every time you try to draw any type of line. Oh, my ex let me do that, or whatever. That's unacceptable. I always find that example funny because, okay, well, if your ex was so great, why aren't you with him? And deep down, you might not be confused. You're scared. You're scared of starting over, and that's valid. But sometimes we know we're in the wrong relationship, and it's going to end no matter what. You're better off doing it sooner rather than later. Sometimes we get paralyzed in the decision making. You're hoping for permission, but the reality is you're never going to get that permission. Unless you're getting it right now. The thing is, you don't need proof that they're bad enough, though. And they don't necessarily have to be a villain. If you don't feel happy and fulfilled, they're probably wrong for you. And of course, always consider your past or your overall mindset with this. Sometimes we need to adjust our mindset and it's not the relationship itself. But if you've been happy and fulfilled in your other relationships, even short term, then that's probably not your mind tricking you. It's genuinely the relationship. And you're not required to over-explain why, because sometimes when you do that, the person tries to talk you out of it. If you've already made up your mind, you don't really need to explain. Maybe just give a vague reason and call it off. And walking away isn't giving up. Sometimes we're in the wrong relationship. It's that simple. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might benefit from it. If you'd like more content from me, I have a YouTube and a Patreon.